I am happy for anybody that is going to be able to watch this live. This is not going to be a normal thing. We won't be doing this every week. I do apologize. I wish I could do this live every single week, but just due to some restrictions. I mean, it ended up happening today because my daughter's on spring vacation, so we will end up having a live podcast today. So just don't expect it to be live in the future, but anybody who is able to tune in, thank you for tuning in. How's it going, guys? All right. The first thing I do want to actually talk about for the Broncos report, it's actually going to be a very, very, very big topic. All right. It's actually the OBJ situation, and we want to talk about how that's going to affect the Broncos going forward. Obviously, right now, the Broncos have not been reported in talks with the Giants about getting OBJ here. I don't expect them to ever have those talks, honestly. It's really not a great budgeting thing for them to do. However, there are ways it can happen. And one of those ways it can happen is definitely if DT were willing to restructure his contract to get him in here that way. I mean, if OBJ was here, honestly, it would definitely give DT more touches. We want to get TT more touches, and if there's anybody out there that can do it, Emmanuel Sanders did it for a while, but we didn't get a whole lot out of Emmanuel Sanders this year. He did suffer with the ankle injury mid-season. That was unfortunate for him. I do hope that in the future he doesn't have any of those mid-season injuries that kind of hurt him a little bit. The other thing I wanted to go over as far as the OBJ situation is there's definitely plenty of options for the Broncos to go out and get him, still keep Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. But obviously DT restructuring his contract is going to be huge on that because, I mean, even after they sign all their draft picks come draft time, there's going to be a lot of issues coming out of that as far as where they are with cap space. That's probably why you saw John Elway trade TJ Ward at the beginning of last season. He is trying to work the books the best way he can, and unfortunately it's coming at the expense of players that everybody really realistically does like here on the Broncos. Obviously, it's not going to be Von Miller, and that was last year's biggest concern. We should have been able to see the TJ Ward situation happening considering how big the contract was for Von Miller. And Von Miller is a person you keep, you don't let him go. That should never happen. You don't get rid of Von Miller. The other situation is definitely where they are with draft position. That can affect what happens as far as the OBJ situation in general. You could end up seeing OBJ a Bronco should they not feel like they had a really good draft. That's another way he definitely could end up here. But going into the draft, I feel like the Broncos are sitting at number 5. I feel a little bit like they don't want to keep that number 5 pick. And it's starting to feel more and more as we get closer to the draft that they don't want to keep that pick. I'm hoping they do. Obviously, you are in a rebuilding phase. That's what happens when you lose a Hall of Famer like Peyton Manning. Unfortunately, that's where John Elway really comes in and how his position right now with the Broncos really affects them going forward. I mean, obviously, he's pretty much taken ownership of the team. Pat Bowen being sick and everything, he's going to continue to take ownership of the team, and I wouldn't expect otherwise from someone as professional as John Elway. Some people think he's a little forward as far as his approach to handling players. I have said many times that he does need to go. I still somewhat feel that way, but obviously every season's a new season, so I'm willing to see what happens as far as going into the season and see if he's able to come through for us and make this the team it's been for many, many decades. It's just not been just for a few years. This team, beyond anything else, has fantastically handled themselves as a winning franchise. This team doesn't have very many losing seasons on its record, especially under the Pat Bowen administration, as I would call it. We haven't had that problem. We are going to be going forward from John Elway. I don't want to spend too much time on that topic. I feel like spending too much time on it might make it a little sensitive, and a lot of people I do know who are Bronco fans do love John Elway, and I'm not being too critical. I think he is still doing a good job. I do think going into his own contract, I think somehow your ability to do the job may have been affected. So that is an opinion of mine, not a fact. So I don't want to come at John Elway that way or have anybody feel that, that is how I feel towards John Elway. The final topic, as far as that, is obviously he is going into the draft this year for the Broncos. He is going to make his decisions off of what talent we get through that draft. I do expect us, especially with the talent we currently have on the roster. We haven't seen what Jake Butt can do. Jake Butt, drafted from Michigan. We haven't had an opportunity to see what his skill set is and how it approaches the Broncos. He's not really a blocking tight end, so what he does in the passing game will make a difference on where this offense does when it goes forward. The other issue is going to be C.J. Anderson. I mean, that is a unnecessary contract sitting on the Broncos uh, payroll. Like, it doesn't need to be there, and he hasn't produced enough for them to say, hey, we need to continue paying that much. I will say, when he has had 20 carries a game, we've seen very different. They'd had all 5 wins last season came when he had 20 carries. It didn't matter whether he had a big yards on the ground, but when they were like, give CJ the ball, give CJ the ball, give CJ the ball, the end result was a W. And those dubs are what you play for. You don't play for anything else. So obviously, if the Broncos aren't thinking about Saquon Barkley, they need to be thinking about trading CJ Anderson possibly for a pick that they might be able to use this year to get a running back. I don't think Devin Booker Devontae Booker, I'm sorry, is going to be really the option. He has obviously downplayed his own abilities. He did have this nice, straightforward running style. It was very similar to the way Tiki Barber used to do it way back in the day. It was just very straightforward, and I did like it, but the problem is he just doesn't produce on a consistent basis. We still always saw more out of CJ. Obviously, during practices and training camps, you also get a chance to see what these players do. And this franchise has many, many times over 2 years decided Devontae was not the starter. It was definitely CJ. That's a big deal when CJ ends up being your starter. It speaks volumes that he is the starter of the Denver Broncos right now. So aside from that, this will be the consistent time frame that I will be doing this report. It's actually a little bit later than I expect to do it. I like to do this report right around 6 o'clock. Every Friday, I'll do the Broncos report. During the season, this will give me a prime opportunity to find out how their final practice went, as well as what a new injury report that they have to produce for the fans, obviously, because I'm still considered a fan. Love broadcasting, talking about them, so that's why I'm here to give you guys some more information. And if you know anybody who does like to be informed about the Denver Broncos, doesn't quite know, new to football or hasn't been around football, please send them to this channel. I mean, we're going to be doing college sports. We're going to be doing high school sports. So there'll be plenty of information on this channel on what the sports are. We'll have plenty of discussions going forward in the future about how the sport's played, what the rules are, things like that. We do plan on having ourselves a debate desk on this channel. However, right now that's still in the works. A lot of things on this channel are going to be in the works. So any support I do get for this channel, I do appreciate. And at this point, I do have to end the broadcast. Normally, we'll do this broadcast a little bit longer, but do obviously, like I said, my daughter's on spring break, so we're going to hang out a little bit. All right, so do appreciate anybody. Obviously, I'm looking around. Nobody came in live, but that's okay. Hopefully, this channel continues to grow and people are able to see and hear this report and actually get some use out of it. So thank you, everybody, and y'all have a great day.